Hey everyone, Brian here for another episode of the Driveway Marketing Podcast. So, after the mayhem of the last two episodes, we're going to slow things down a little bit. That's not bad. That's actually really good because our last two were about AI and some insane conversations I had with some of my friends who were even crazier than me. So, if you missed the episode with John or you missed the episode after it, please go ahead and listen. I think your head's going to explode and hopefully in a good way. I'm going to meet my good friend Alan Swack. Alan, say hi to everybody.
Good morning.
So for those of you watching, we're waving. Hello, everyone. We're waving. For those who are listening, we're waving to you wherever you are. Alan and I, as a lot of people that you're finding out through the podcast, Alan and I are together. We're in a peer group mastermind. We've talked about masterminds a lot. I met Alan 3 years ago or 3.5 years ago at a rather loquacious event at the Floridian in Florida, where we may have partaken in some lively beverages and had some fun. Because one of the great things about being a mastermind is you get to be actually friends with your peers who run completely different businesses. And then we get to help each other, right? So, and we're going to talk about that today, about some of the help Alan's gotten, learning with other people that have different perspectives, and then how Alan's helped me in my business by giving me a kind of a interesting strategy to our home services business, and then other cool stuff. So, Alan is in beautiful Coralville, Iowa, which I don't know, still know where that is, but I do know it's near the University of Iowa, right? So, as a
We are
big,
landlocked. There's no oceans around us.
there's no oceans. Yeah, I was in Wisconsin a couple weeks ago. We were both together in Wisconsin. I was like, "So can I get some grouper here?" And they're just laughed at me because like I live in Florida and we get good grouper and that kind of stuff. So, it is definitely a different
They got
place.
lakes in Wisconsin, but no oceans.
Got lakes, and I don't even know. Iowa's got a lot of cornfields,
Lots corn and bean fields. Yep.
corn and bean fields, white houses, red barns, whatever.
Lots of red barns.
Red barns, white barns. There's a law you have to follow when you're a farmer there.
A lot of farmhouses, we call them four squares because each wall measures the same. So it's just a square house that's usually 2 stories.
So there's a trivia today. So why is Alan here? Well, Alan is a home inspector. Alan's the founder of a company called Accurate Home Inspections.
Yes.
And why that's interesting, just like people that I think are listening to this podcast, he's in a sea of, hey, how many home inspectors do you know in your neighborhood? Probably lots, right? Alan's not in a huge market, so
There's a
there's
few. There's a few.
but there's not 10,000. It's like I live in Florida, South Florida, where real estate's a huge driver. There's probably hundreds within 10 miles of me. There's probably 10 within that with that. So how Alan's really learned how to stand out. And so I want to ask, so how did you get into, we talked before the call, you moved from Connecticut to Iowa, not Idaho. Thank you for your old friend, Connecticut. So how did you end up in as a home inspector? Because I don't think you didn't wake up one day and say, "Oh, I'm going to be a home inspector." There was a path to get there. So why don't you share with everyone? Because we all have paths, right? There's always
Right.
this journey. So how did you go from being like whatever you did before, and how did you become a home inspector, and what made you decide to do it?
So good question. So I was in construction. We framed a lot of houses, did some remodeling projects. One thing I realized how labor intensive that is. And my body just started feeling the toll of framing houses, putting the roof sheathing on, having to put trusses on. That I decided I wanted to see what else was out there. And somehow I came across home inspections and I went, that might fit my personality a little bit better than being a laborer for construction. So I took a weekend class. And in Iowa, you don't have to be licensed for home inspections. So I took a weekend class, and after that class, I could go ahead and hang up my shingle and say, "Hey, I'm open for business." And that was 15 years ago, and I haven't looked back.
That's great. So kind of the takeaway there is just sometimes you just got to take the leap, right? A lot of times, so in your case, you fired your boss. You're like, I'm done. And it's interesting that you stayed in the same industry, but you didn't do the same job. Like we meet people all the time, like, hey, I was a painting contractor and I worked for some guy and he was an idiot. And I went and started myself. So we call that firing your boss. You didn't really fire your boss, you fired the business you were in and kind of said, I understand how things are put together, right? So I guess was education, because obviously some people, some industries, you have to be licensed and you have to go past state tests and federal, maybe even national tests, right? So for someone in an industry that's not, do you feel like do you feel like that helps you make the decision, or would it have hurt you if you had to go take all these courses? Because then it becomes a planning thing, right? So did you just, I mean,
That's a
was it
great
was it a
question.
week or
So
2 weeks?
looking back at it, there's an organization called ASHI, the American Society of Home Inspectors, and they're based out of Chicago, Illinois, and they offer a 2 week class to train you to become licensed because you have to be licensed in Illinois to become a home inspector. I just did a weekend class, but looking back, it would have been easier maybe to take that 2 week class. And also, too, I kind of wish I would have worked for a company for a year before I started my own home inspection business. But in my market, we're all entrepreneurs, we're all sole proprietors, and so nobody really wants to take you on to train you because they don't want to train their competition.
Yeah, yeah, that's for sure. I've actually had situations where I took some of my staff and I trained them to leave. So, but I hear you. But if they, if you don't train them and they stay, right, that's even worse, right? So,
And
um,
it's funny you mentioned that I fired my boss because the construction company I worked for was actually called Accurate Carpentry. And when I
oh, there.
decided to part ways with them, I decided to call it Accurate Home Inspections, not because it was an A, but because I just wanted to take that name and not have my old boss be able to use that name.
Ha! So there you go. There's definitely some. We all have our ways to cork it. And so one of our earlier episodes, I want to say the St. Louis Closet Company episode, literally similar story. She wanted to open a closet business, went to work for somebody for like 2 or 3 weeks and realized it was a total train wreck. And she was like, there's no way I want to be anything a part of this. And so she literally took her entire business and created and went out and bought stuff on a credit card. She had to go buy machines. She had to go buy equipment. She had to go buy a truck. So she talked about going in the deep end. Home inspection, not a huge investment like in capital equipment. But I think she said this is 20 years ago. She spent like $30,000 on her credit cards. And her
Wow.
husband thought she was completely insane. Now, 20 years later, she's got a 40-person company and a building and stuff like that. But so sometimes, one, you got to believe in yourself over everyone else. So that's the fun part of it.
I'd
So
say for me, the biggest cost in home inspections is the fact we offer radon testing, and those radon monitors are, $1,000 each. So when you collect 10 or 15 of them, it starts to add up.
sure. Well, but that's why it's a real business, right? So that's why, we're in this world of hustle culture and side hustles and side gigs. The difference is when you run a real business and running a real business matters, right? Because you have equipment, you've got payroll, for you, I think it's just you, maybe an assistant part-time, whatever. And you don't necessarily have to go big, but you have to pretend, you have to act like a real business, right?
Yes.
So anyway, that's super cool. So I have to ask, and I may have heard this story before, but no one who's listening has. So you were by yourself. How long were you by yourself before you found yourself in the world of learning about the business? And I know you were in Mike Crow's group, so you were in the coach blueprint or whatever he calls the home inspector coaching world. So when you went from the world by yourself to you got in the world where you were getting help, how long was that? And what was the first step? What was the first step to going from by yourself to actually getting some help? What was that like?
That's a great question. So I know I started in 2010 and I was by myself and I was trying to walk in and out of, not try, but I was walking in and out of real estate offices, but I really wasn't having the right approach. And actually, when I did meet up with Mike Crow, he really focused on marketing. And so that helped me present my business a little bit better to the real estate agents walking in and out of the offices. That took me probably about 6 or 7 years. So about 2016 or 2017, I came across Mike Crow. And the one thing that sold me on him was the fact that he said, well, this is a small investment. At the time, it was like $297 a month. He said, if I could book you two more inspections per month, I pay for myself. And I'm like, light bulb turned on. I went, you know what? He's right. If I sign up for his class or his coaching program and I can get two more inspections a month, it paid for his coaching.
Yeah, and so most people don't realize so it's I call it leapfrogging, right? Other people have other terms for it, but anyone who has been there and done it before you, and I'm in a program, Alan and I are in a program, and we're not gonna say how much it is, but it ain't cheap. And it's significantly more than that, but how much different is your business now than it was 3 years ago? So at whatever level you're at, right? So I always tell people if you can't afford it, that's one thing, but get in a group of other like-minded entrepreneurs in your community and hold each other accountable to doing something. Doing something. Something is better than nothing, right? And then when you get and you find the right person to latch onto, please do that, right? Because you're going to move forward because they've kind of passed, they've already gone down the path. And the danger today is there's so much nonsense and so much road noise with these influencers who are marketers of influence, not necessarily marketers of the product or service, but they're marketers of influence. And so people get lost, right? So just be aware that you might be in a program you didn't like. I will tell the story when I did my first mastermind. It was a lot of money, and I was literally throwing up. And my wife threw. We were in a big room. It was a Dan Kennedy event, and it was peak performers, and it was a lot of money. And they basically said, Pam goes, I can't, I don't think we can afford it. And she goes, her exact words, we can't afford not to do it. That was 8 years ago. My business is completely different than it was that time ago. I've been on stage with, I've hung out with Steve Forbes and Alan Mulally. No one knows who they are, but Steve Forbes, you might have heard Forbes magazine. Alan Mulally, you might have heard a couple companies he was CEO of. One was Boeing and one was Ford. So you might have met them. And I got to meet them and hang out with them, not just go to an event where they spoke. But in both cases, I got to have meals with them and really hear some of their cool stories. They wouldn't
What's
know who
great
I
about a
am.
coaching program is that it helps you think outside the box because
Right.
you don't realize what you don't know until you realize what you don't know.
Exactly. No, that's a very true because people say, "What do you mean you don't know what you don't know?" No, I know I can't speak Chinese. I know I'm not a heart surgeon, but and I've been around coaching for a while, both as a coach and as someone who consumes that coaching is, growth is where you don't know something, it's where all the growth occurs. I never thought of that,
Correct.
right? And it doesn't matter what level you're at, which I think is totally cool, right? If you're going to talk to someone as a coach, ask who their coaches are and get like see if they're in there, see if they're really in the programs because a lot of guys fake it. But and some we come and go, right? I was in Kennedy's for a long time and then it went away. And now I've been in Vance's for 3 years, and I think it's been a fantastic peer resource, right? I'm in two other
I would
groups,
have to agree.
but I'm in two other groups. One I run as a peer group, and then another one is a different voice that's leading me down a different path. So I'm like, so now I don't just the here's the other side of it. Don't just consume to consume. There's a lot of people that will say, I'm getting ready to get ready. Next month I'm going to launch my website. It's going to be great. Next month I'm going to start posting. No, do something, right? So,
Do it today. Do it yesterday. Why are you waiting for tomorrow?
yeah, the two best times to plant a tree, 15 years ago and today,
Today, yeah.
right? So,
I gotta agree with you, Brian. I mean, if you're gonna find a business coach, you want to find out is he also getting additional coaching?
right.
And most of them are.
Yeah. And then I will say, and this is no rub on guys that are in the local communities, but find someone who's got some expertise that you're looking for, right? Because there might be a guy that's a financial coach who can help you with your business books. That only matters if you have enough business to book, right?
Correct.
Someone who's going to have a marketing style coach that works if you know who your customer is. So the first thing you need to learn how to do, in my mind, you have to know how to sell something, right? And have to do it in a way that's comfortable to you, which is why I have Alan here today because Alan is not a sales guy. Are you a sales guy?
No, I am not. No.
I'm a sales guy. I always tell people I'm a professional salesperson. So if I get excited about something, it's not because I'm trying to take money from you because I'm excited because I can help, right? Because it's sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad, and some people don't like me for it, and some people love me for it, and I could give two shits if they like me or don't like me because I know who I am and why I'm helping out. So Alan has a really, really exceptionally clever way of getting people to get to know Alan first. Super important thing. People buy things from people they trust. And then how to do it on a continuous basis. So Alan, can you share a little bit of your how you got started, what you're doing as one of your big lead gen sources, right? Because you did Mike Crow's thing, which is how to create direct relationships with real estate brokerages, right? So you were walking into
Correct.
brokerages, doing the candy bowl, measure, getting to know the receptionist, kind of doing that. He calls it Maven marketing. There's other names for it, but doing that kind of walk in the door kind of thing, right? That's a big part of Mike's relationship building, right?
Yeah, because you'd walk into the real estate offices and you'd have candy, and that was your in to get into the office because you didn't come in empty-handed.
Right,
Then you'd have some brochures or some business cards. And then after a couple of months or a couple of weeks, depending on how you walked in and out of these offices, then you start asking, hey, can I do a presentation? Can I
right,
come in and your sales meeting and go ahead and meet the real estate agents in the office?
right. That changed with COVID because no one came to the office. That's one
Oh my
thing.
gosh, that really changed.
Yeah. And then, and here's the other thing, right? So we call that pursuit based marketing, where you are pursuing them to get them to come for you. Now, what Mike is incredibly clever about, and that's we're oversimplifying this thing times a million percent, is that you learn to build rapport, you get scripts, blah blah blah, right? So you do become a trusted resource. But what his goal, I think, is that they get to know Alan first, and then well, a lot of other people are calling in. Well, hey, just give me a shot, and then let your realtors decide if they're gonna want to do business with me. And so eventually that does work. But the first time you walk in, you're pretty uncomfortable, right?
Oh, very uncomfortable because
Right?
you don't know what to expect and you don't know what the response is going to be when you walk in.
They're gonna yell at you. We don't allow solicitors, blah blah blah. Right. So anyway, so we call that pursuit. So Alan has I don't know what to call it, but it's like a different angle. So share us a little bit about your angle that you've been doing last 18 months. Has it been
Yeah,
probably
almost 2 years now, probably
almost
almost
two
two
years?
years.
So the
So
last 2 years,
now what I'm doing now is I'm teaching CE classes to real estate agents
so
because every
smart.
real estate agent needs 36 hours, or at least in my market, needs 36 hours every 3 years to renew their license. 12 hours is mandatory. They got to take business, law, and ethics. But then the other
Sure.
24 hours is elective hours. So I become a source to where they can go ahead and get these elective hours. So I teach CE classes once a month, and it could be an hour class or it could be up to 3 hour class on different topics. I have a library of classes or courses that I can pick from, and just depending on the time of the year, like in the summer, it's tough to get anybody to commit for a 3 hour class, but they'll commit to an hour class.
Right.
And then in the fall and winter, when it's a little bit slower, oh yeah, I'll come to a 3 hour class, no problem.
Right. And it gives them, I mean, think about it. So again, there's this regulatory need. Hey, other industries have needs like that. Pam, my wife, is doing this in the interior design business. Alan and I talked about this earlier because they have a need, but she's filling a niche that they don't currently do, which is a different story. But they're required to that. And then what are the biggest deal killers in real estate? I'm guessing, you tell me if I'm wrong. One is they can't get the financing, so hopefully that's been taken care of up front. And the second thing is, something's happening to the property, like that the owner didn't know about, and it's big dollars, right? That's probably a big deal killer, right?
So that's a great question. So I just did, I got a home inspection coming up tomorrow, and I was talking to the seller because I had to drop off the radar, and they said, yeah, this is actually the second offer. I'm like, oh, what happened to the first one? Well, the first one, believe it or not, the people applied for a loan, got approval from the bank, but then found out later that their visas were expiring and they wouldn't renew them, so they couldn't buy the house because they had to move back to the country that they lived in.
Oh, there you go. So that's something you can't ever factor for, but
And then
um,
financing, I mean, you might put an offer in on a house, but then the appraiser come in and said, "No, I'm sorry, it's the house is appraising for less than what you offered." So then the buyer has to make a decision. Do I want to go ahead and come out of pocket with money to
put more
buy
money
this
down
house,
or
or do I
right.
just walk away and find something else?
Right. Yeah. So that's a big thing. But then the other side is I remember, I sold a couple of my houses. A couple of them I did 8, 10 years ago, but I did my other house 20 years ago. And I remember the big time was my septic system. So when we got the septic system inspection, I did that before I listed it. I was like, I need to know. I don't care about the rest of the stuff in the house. It's all just regular whatever. So I paid to have a septic system inspection because I'm like, I need to know if there's a $30,000 home. That was the mitigation in New Jersey, was build this giant mound in your backyard
Yeah.
because they never should have built the houses on half the neighborhoods because they had no perk anyway.
Well, in
And
my state, you have to have it inspected within 3 years if you're going to sell a house. So if you want to list your house tomorrow and you have never had it inspected in 10 years, you're going to have to pay to have it inspected.
oh God, so there you go.
Septic.
Yeah. So anyway, so there you go. So there's the real reason to know more about home inspections. And as a listing agent, maybe they don't know that, right? Maybe they're relatively new. They probably know it because it's a market thing. But
Right.
having an expert like you give them the heads up on what to do, what a cool thing. So you obviously do different topics, do different things. So what are some takeaways that people can that are listening can kind of take away? One, does it feel bad? Like you're like trying, does it feel at all unauthentic when you're having conversations with them?
No, you know what's great is that I wish it was a bigger classroom of real estate agents coming to my CE classes, but it's small. I mean, we could have 8 1 month, we could have up to 20 the next month. But what's nice is that I created a friendly environment that everybody just asks questions as we're covering the material. Nobody's waiting to the end. because we've all been in groups where there's 50 plus people and people won't speak up if they have a question because they're afraid to look dumb, I guess you could say, in front of their colleagues.
And
And
then there's
my
the other guy that talks all the time and asks every
Yeah,
one person asks 50 questions and you want to shoot him. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to interrupt. Keep going.
no, no, you're fine. So sometimes I just, when that happens, I just say, you know what? That would be a great question for your broker to ask. And then that usually quiets them down because they don't know what to say. The one thing I've been doing with my CE classes is that I've been adding pictures from deficient items that I see on an inspection. That way I can educate the realtors how to proceed forward when they're working with their buyers. You know, because sometimes they go into a house and they have no clue that the water heater is going to come up on the inspection report because it was plumbed in improper.
Right.
Or
And
even
listen,
yesterday inspection, you know, it's a home in the country, rural Iowa, has a well, has a septic, but I think it's been sitting vacant for a while. So I ran all the water, and when the buyer and the realtor showed up, they both said, "What's that smell? Is that gas?" And I said, "Well, unfortunately, it's an all electric home, so it's not gas. It was the water had a foul smell." So I don't know if it's because it had been vacant for so long and nobody ran the plumbing, that's why it smelled.
yeah, who knows? Sometimes in where I live in Florida, we have high sulfur contents. So sometimes you get that kind of rotten egg kind of
Yeah.
gassy smell with we use it for just irrigation. I have an RO system on the house, but a lot of it's not unusual depending. But for us, a realtor would say, "Oh, that's just the tannins in the water. That's normal. You just have to get a water treatment system." But if they haven't seen it before, I go, "Oh my God,
Well,
what's
that's
wrong?"
the problem is the buyer goes in and makes an offer on the house. They don't smell anything. But now here
Right.
it is, they're attending the inspection, and let's say it's a 3 hour inspection. I've been running water for 3 hours. Yeah, there's a distinct foul odor in the house.
Yep. And so what I want, so Alan said a couple things. He doesn't even realize it that I want for our listeners to realize. One, he talked about scale, right? So every business is different. So he talked about I'd like to get more people in the room, but 8 and 20, having 8 to 20 people that you get in front of every month doesn't feel that scary. It
No.
feels way different than it would be to get in front of 800 or 8,000 or 800,000. So when you do these Google ads and Facebook ads, your marketing guys, oh, we're gonna give you 50,000 impressions a month. It doesn't matter if those impressions don't turn into people in front of you. And so what Alan has done is he shortcutted this kind of relationship system into getting them, right? His audience is realtors. His offer is I will give you free continuing ed credits. Just come spend an hour with me and I'll educate you. That is a great offer. I don't think you realize how good of an offer that is.
That is a good offer, actually.
It's
Now,
a great offer,
when you
right?
word it that way.
So it is a great offer. And then he's got his audience. So what happens is that, before when he was getting to the receptionist in the building, he could maybe see one person every hour, every 2 hours, whatever it is. You do it. And I know how I would do it when I first got into sales. And my boss is like, you need to knock on doors. I'm like, oh, hell no, I ain't doing that. I want to find the influencers and have them refer business to me. And that's exactly what you're doing. But how much more fun is it if you just show up to people that are already interested in talking to you? Right? And that's what's not scary. And then the second thing I want to talk about that you don't even know you do is you have a marketing system. Alan
Right.
just created it because he was like, I think I can do this. And by the way, that's how most of us create marketing systems. But his marketing system is he knows his audience. Who's your audience? He
Real
said it
estate
before,
agents.
right? They're hard to get a hold of. Why are they hard to get a hold of? Because everyone else is trying to get a hold of them. I was listening to a podcast from someone who was in the mortgage broker industry, and they basically said, "Are you tired of cold calling realtors and emailing realtors who never follow up with you and never hear them?" He's like, "You know why? Because 100 other people in your market are doing the exact same thing. Got to be different." So Alan's doing something completely different, and he's also smart. He's the only provider in his territory, right? You're the only provider in your area and some other part, right?
That I know
So
of. There might be one or two inspectors that just teach one class that's been approved, but they don't have a library like I have.
and it's so now so like think about it. So he's created this little system, and once a month he sends out a couple times a month he sends out some emails, says, "Hey, come into my free class." They sign up for the class. I don't know if, and then they get the credits. I'm assuming your provider deals with the signups and the credits and all the other stuff.
Correct. Yeah, I pay for a yearly subscription, and they provide me the library. I just have to teach the class, and then I have to mark the attendance sheet. And then after I mark the attendance sheet, typically on the same day, this company is sending out the CE certificates to the agents.
So what a great, I mean, people are listening, like, this is pure genius. Find a way to like, I mean, it is the ultimate, it is the ultimate, service sale. Like you are
But the
genuinely
beautiful
giving,
thing is, Brian, is that before I was walking in out of offices asking to do a presentation in the office to get in front of the realtors. Now they're contacting me. Hey, when can you come in to teach a CE class to our agents?
right?
So
So,
instead of me asking for the business, now they're asking me for the business.
and so this is the big aha is he went from being just an home inspector to the expert, right? So
Yes.
I mean, just I'm extracting kind of like what you are doing that you don't even realize you're doing it. And so now he's gone from, chasing people to now he's attracting people and now he's the expert, right? So we talk about one of my episodes, I talk about social media, right? So, TikTok's a rave, Instagram's a party, Facebook is a class reunion, and LinkedIn is like a networking event. And then hopefully you want to be the one on stage. So if you use that same analogy in Alan's words, he's the guy on stage because now people that are because every home gets inspected, right? That's a subject of every you could probably
Typically,
buy.
yeah. Typically they get inspected, yeah.
I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't. I mean, I bought my house, the house I'm in now. We bought it from an investor. Um, we bought it as is, subject to an inspection, and we did. So we did subject to an inspection. We did. We had it inspected, and then we found out that in order for the mortgage to clear, we had to get a well test, and so we had to do what he talked about with the water test. Luckily, everything was fine. But we just knew what we were getting into, and we hired a home inspector. Yeah, these outlets are buggy, and these doors have rot in them, and these windows should be replaced, and blah blah that kind of stuff. And we knew all that because we could see it. But having that peace of mind, having an expert it was worth the money. And then we followed up with a contractor friend of mine, going, okay, what do you think of these results? How what should we fix in what order, right? And he gave us some ideas, and we're also pretty handy, so we kind of knew what we should do in what order. I wanted to make sure the roof didn't leak. I wanted to make sure the foundation didn't have any cracks. I wanted to make sure the electrical system was done right when it was done. All that stuff, and gave me peace
And
of
then
mind.
like the major components like a water heater, a furnace, and an air conditioning, what are the age of those components? Because, if it's 30 years old and you realize, well, shoot, I'm going to have to replace that as soon as I close. That's a big
Exactly.
ticket item.
Ours were new. Guy bought it. We knew they were new, right? But still, like having that peace of mind. But again, just think of the brilliance of what Adam or Alan's talking about. Is think so he's gone down this path. It took you 2 years, right? Um, I have to ask, what made you decide to do this? Because I don't know that I know the answer to that. We know each other socially.
That's a good question. So when I was in Mike Crow's event or Mike Crow's coaching club, there was a lot of other members in his group that was talking about how they were teaching these CE classes.
Got
And I'm
it.
like, oh, that's really interesting. So I finally looked into it. Now, it's interesting in the state of Iowa, the company that I'm working with, it took them over a year to get approved as a licensed school in my state.
Yeah,
So
every state's different. Every regulating body is different,
it
right?
just showed
So
me that nobody else was using this program because, shoot, we got Des Moines 2 hours away, the state capital of Iowa. Obviously, no home inspector there was teaching CE classes with this company because if
right.
they would have been approved and that would have been in and approved within a day. It
Yeah.
took
So
over a
that
year to get approved for this company in the state of Iowa for me to be able to teach their courses.
So it's just amazing. So every marketing systems are everywhere, right? So in my book, Stuck on First, I talk about process-oriented marketing. I didn't know what the hell it was. It was just I had a process. Brian had a process. When I met somebody, I always sent them when I got an appointment with somebody, it was always through a referral. It was 100% through referrals. Some cases it was pursuit, but 95% of the time it was referrals. They got a package from me. I was referred to you from Alan. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week. Here's some information. I'm just going to send it to you before I get there so I don't forget to bring it, kind of stuff, right? Then we had our meeting. We always had a follow up. Every time we had a follow up, I had a follow up call. Now I was selling technology and services and stuff like that. There was always a follow up letter, right? The follow up letter was just a thank you. Thanks for your time. Only then would we consider even doing a proposal. So by the time my customers got a proposal from me, they've been touched 2 or 3 times. Why does that matter? Because my close rate was 80% in an industry where the close rate was 25%. Well, because I had this little process. And it was like you always had to do it. And it wasn't hard. I typed a little letter. Stuck some stuff in a brochures in an envelope and off I sent it. And then we had our meetings and I would do a little handwritten thank you card. I do remember having a stack in my car, right? Pre-stamped. I would meet them. Hey Joe, great meeting you. I enjoyed lunch today at the XYZ Bar and Grill. Looking forward to talking to you next week. Here's my card, here's my cell, drop it in the box. Like literally, like it doesn't take, you don't,
So
nothing
that
has to
that would be
be.
considered a Tom campaign, top of mind,
Yep.
what you're doing. So
Yep. So that's great. Anyway, great. I didn't know it was called a Tom. I just called it Brian selling because I didn't know what else to, because I knew it worked. So I just kept doing it. And then we would do value add, right? So if the sales cycle is longer, rather than saying, are you ready to buy today? I would send them information about their industry. I would send them information about what's going on, really mostly industry stuff. When you sold tech, it was, you were competing against other technologies. And so a lot of times you had to educate them about here's what's going on as it relates to this widget, whatever it was, or this piece of software, this piece of hardware, whatever, this solution. And so it kept us top of mind. And it delivered better than email. I mean, I still did email, but we still did packages. So anyway,
and I know with email, I mean, people say, I never got your email. And I'll be like, well, did you check your spam folder? Oh, I never checked that. But then they check it and they're like, oh, there's that email.
yeah, that's tough, right? So the other takeaway is don't rely on one channel to get your message out, right?
Right.
So maybe it's, postcards are a little bit expensive, right? You know, But I have to ask. So postcards can be more expensive. You can leave them a phone call. You can have your assistant do it. You can do email. I say this all the time. If you do two channels, I don't care which two you pick, your response rates are going to go up by 30%. So why do I know that? Because we call and email and postcards to lots of people, and your response, whatever your base rate is, right? It might only be out of the 500 you said in your market, you might only get eight. Well, 1% is five, right? So you're at 2%. And in a world where, 2% conversion, which is getting people in, probably pretty good, right? What's the
Well, what's
average?
unique about me is the fact that, yeah, I might get the same 8 or 20 people for the whole year, but then they renew their license at the end of December. So then the next year, when I'm teaching these CE classes, I'm in front of another 8 to 20 new agents, not new,
Right.
but to me, new agents that need to come to my class because they got to get renewal CE courses completed by the end of that year.
And the realtors talk to each other, which CE classes are fun to go to, which are helpful, which help you close deals, blah, blah, blah. So out of the people that come, and you may not know this number, out of the people that come to your classes, how many of them do business with you at some point? So it's now you're
Oh,
almost 2 years in. Is
about
it most
80
of
to
them?
90%.
Yeah, there you go. So, all right, we don't need to know the number. So it's like, so if it was 10 or 20%, you got, is this working? If it's more than half, it's incredible,
I would
right?
say that all the realtors that attend my CE classes, I've done business with at least once in that year.
And we've heard from other people that we know in our mastermind, that realtor may only do two deals a year because they're a part-timer or they're a teacher or whatever, right? So you don't
Yeah.
know, or they might have come out for another deal, or someone else might have, their mortgage guy might have recommended a whatever. But what an
When I
incredible
first
story.
started, I thought they'd have a deal every month, but it doesn't work that way. You're lucky if you get 4 or 5 inspections out of one real estate agent for the year.
Yeah, I don't know. Every market's different, right? And Jesse, who we both know when he was coaching agents, the average agent does four deals a year, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it's somewhere between 4 and 8 deals a year. So
So let's say one every quarter.
yeah, so that's again, and 60% of them are part-timers and blah blah blah. And that's changing now because obviously in August of 2025, the real estate market's different, right? So, but the ones that are producing and closing, they still need to get their inspections done. And now all of a sudden, imagine if you walked in a room and you had an 80% chance of doing business with them. I don't know about you, but I want to be in that room, right? Like that is a that
It's a
is a
great room, I'll tell you. It's a great room.
and and I would imagine they like it. You get to know them, right? And it's a whole lot better to do business with people you enjoy hanging out with. And that's why when you slow down this concept of your marketing machine, which Alan has clearly stated, all the steps, find a hungry audience, give them something they need, and then provide them something that benefits both of you, right? So it's a
Yeah,
fantastic
you
system.
definitely don't want to stop 1 or 2 months by not teaching CE classes. You got to have one every month
I
just to
think
stay top of mind.
yeah, as any, um, probably the biggest thing I've seen over the last 30 years of my life in marketing and sales is most people just give up too soon. They just give up too soon. I have a client right now in our referral business, and they are looking for live appointments for referrals, which are great, and they're getting good numbers. They're getting 3, 4, 5% cold traffic to that, which are fantastic. But they're getting 30% of them. They're saying, yes, I'm interested, but I just can't talk to you right now, and they don't do anything with it. And I've lost my mind. So I've literally lost my mind. So because I'm just like, they're still your buyer community. What are you giving up? And they're giving up because they're walking around going, "Are you a buyer? Are you a buyer? Are you a buyer? Are you a buyer?" That doesn't work, right?
Well,
So
it's funny in the real estate world in 2020 with the interest rate so low, realtors really didn't have to work too hard. They show a house to one buyer and they put an offer in on it.
right, hey, you better get it because there's 6 people behind us, right?
There's 6 people behind them. Now, I mean, there's inventory out there, and so they're having to work a little bit harder, maybe to show 3 or 4 houses to that same buyer before they finally pull the trigger and say, "I want to put an offer in on this one."
Yeah, exactly. So super cool. All right, I don't want this to go on too long. I think we've been at it for a while. So um, my takeaway: be different, provide tons of value, have a system. Sound about right?
That's yeah, exactly right.
So I can't thank Alan enough for being a part of this. We've been at this podcast for just about a year now, and I think you're like our 35th or 37th episode, maybe something like
Wow.
that. And it's been and I kind of stopped for a while, to be honest with you. And I was like, why? One, I'm giving, not expecting anything back. So people find me, whatever. But this is a great resource that you can take from this, whatever you take from it. But hopefully, Alan's nuggets will help out. So thanks so much.
Thanks for having me today.
All right, everyone. Thank you all for being a part of this great journey on the Driveway Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Brian, and I look for you on the next one. Take care.